Okay, yeah. So the deliberately eye-catching title this year is "Would Rambam advocate davening at the Kever of the fifth matriarch?" Okay, and yeah, that's supposed to make you start wondering, right? Okay, so I'll ask you in a second. So the two topics. The primary topic is to analyze the fifth matriarch, and so this is the thing. Last year I called this year Chumash methodology. And I don't know how many of my Chumash years you've listened to, but I'm very fascinated by like the relationship between drash and pshat. Okay, and all things being equal, I'm definitely a pshat guy. But the drash in this particular sugya is very interesting because I feel like it is a drash that's close to pshat, but it's not pshat. And I want to kind of like explore what the implications of that are. So that's kind of open-ended. We call this Chumash Exploration because it's open-ended. Okay. And then the secondary topic is not a big topic. It's would the Rambam advocate davening at her grave? Okay. Yeah, because, and this is a teaser, because Avraham ben Rambam does. And the question is, what would his father say? Okay. So first of all, who am I referring to when I say the fifth matriarch? Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. Maybe it might be. I haven't gotten. I've only gotten through like reviews.
Okay. Did you say Chava?
Yeah.
No. She was way before.
Is it
Yes. Ding ding ding. Yeah. Okay. You know her.
She died like on the.
Or her. What do you say? Her what? Yes. Yeah. What's her name? Devorah. Okay. Yeah. So this is the other way I was thinking of like opening the shiur is if I asked you who is Devorah, right? You say she's the judge, right? But this is the other Devorah, and this is the first Devorah. This is the original Devorah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. You can definitely get a Chumash if you want. Yeah. Okay. So let's look at the psukim. So there's only one pasuk we're focusing on, but we need to get the context. Okay. So this is in Beraishit on when Yaakov is on his way with his entourage back home. Okay, going back home. So it's Beraishit. What was it? Lamed Hey, pasuk Vav. We're also going to go a little bit earlier, but this is the main place we're focusing on. So Vayavo Yaakov Luza. So Yaakov came to Luz, which was renamed Beis El. Yeah, okay, good. From that was last week's parsha. Asher Be'eretz, which is what last week's Wednesday night Asher was on. Asher Be'eretz Canaan, which is in the land of Canaan. He Beis El, right? That is Beis El. V'chol ha'am Asher Imon, all the people who were with him, right? So this is him and all his and both of his wives and the children and whatever other like servants and other people he had with him. Vayivin sham mizbeach, and he built a mizbeach, an altar. Vayikra l'makom El Beis El, and he called it that. Ki sham niglu elav ha'elokim b'varchu mipnei achiv, because that is where God appeared to him when he fled from his brother. That was, yeah.
Didn't he already rename it?
Yeah. That is weird. Yeah, it is strange. I did not get a chance to look into that. Okay, then seemingly out of the blue, but Thomas Devorah Meinekes Rivka. So Devorah, the Meinekes, okay, which how does your translation translate it? Wet nurse. Okay, fine. Yeah. So Meinekes literally is from the shorish yonek, which means to like suckle. Ween is probably from the same shorish. But it means to like a baby is like a yonek, it's like a suckling, you know. So it does mean to wean, right? Yeah. You know what that means then? It is a contronym, right? Contronym is a word that means the thing and its opposite. So it means to nurse. Say again. Raise.
Two different words.
Yeah, contronym is a word that means the thing and its opposite, right? So the examples that come to mind are to dust something either means to put dust on it or to take dust off, you know, right? So like, or to cleave means to split apart, or to cleave means to stick together, you know?
It's like the one that everyone always uses as an example.
Yeah. So, yonek, I guess, is to nurse or to stop nursing, right? Okay. Just 1 second. I'm just going to pause this. Plain pshat is what's the wet nurse's job?
After child is weaned from his mother, feeds the child. Right?
She feeds the child, right? She nurses the child, right? Yeah, right. Nurses the child, right? So that was for example, Yocheved got that job with Moshe, right? So she fed him, right? But we're gonna see it's not so clear what Meinekes means here. Okay, so this is Meinekes Rivka. Vatikaver mitachas leves el, and she was buried under base El. And they say what I didn't get involved in the geography. Under base El means like base El was like a raised area, and this is like beneath it, whatever. Right. That's based on Unclos, yeah. Tachas ha'alon, under the oak, Vayikra Shemo Alon Bachus, and it called its name the oak of crying, or the oak of cryings. Okay, that's the name. Okay, then suddenly, Vayira Elohim El Yaakov Od B'Va'o Mipadan Aram Vayvarachaso. God appeared to Yaakov again when he came from Padan Aram, and he blessed him. And this is again because he appeared to him earlier. Vayomer Lo Elokim, and he said to him, Shimcha Yaakov, your name is Yaakov. Lo Yikari Shimcha Od Yaakov, but your name is not going to be called Yaakov anymore. Ki'im Yisrael Yehei Shemecha, but your name will be called Yisrael, which the angel had already said. Yeah, right. But this is now God telling him. Okay, whatever. Vayikra Eshmo Yisrael, and his name was called Yisrael. Okay, now obviously that's a whole sugya. We're just going to focus on the Devorah thing. I'm just showing you the context. Okay, now.
Rambam.
Oh yeah, we're going to do the Ramban. Okay, we're going to do the Ramban. Yeah. Yeah, we're going to do that Ramban. Oh, so we can thank Al Torah for their Olam HaMikra feature for showing us this is not the tree, but this is what an alone looks like, or this is a bigger one. Huge tree, right? So it's like I don't know what you pictured, but I didn't picture a big tree like this.
It's like a gnarled kind of like bottom of like a gnarled oak tree.
Yeah. I guess oak trees are big. It just didn't occur to me. We do. I know they're big. Yeah, I just didn't picture that. But we're using Rabbi Zimmer's method, or his. We're taking a page from his imagination shiur, and always good to visualize stuff, And this is like the location of the story. Okay. So that's our pasuk that we're going to focus on. So what questions do we have? And I'm sure there's lots of questions you could ask, but like, what are the main questions?
Okay, why this is basically almost entirely a repetition of the angel thing.
Okay, we're only we're going to focus just on this pasuk and only go into the other stuff for context.
Okay, I'm kind of stealing the Rambam.
Don't look at the Ramban. Think on your own.
The first sentence.
Okay, think on your own before. No, you can't unless it's coming from here, unless it's coming from the pasuk.
Well, it's about this pasuk.
No, if it's coming from the pasuk, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Who's this woman?
Who is the woman? Okay, right. Okay, right. So the main question: who is she? This is the first time we're hearing of her. Okay, like by name, certainly. Okay, like what's her deal? And she blips into existence and then blips out. And sometimes you get people like that, where a character makes an appearance in one pasuk, and it says the significance. But here, the only significance is her death and burial. So that's weird. Okay, good. Other questions?
Oh, well, why does it say Beit El here? She was buried beneath Beit El, but the pasuk prior, he named it El Beit El.
Oh, that's a good question. Yeah, I didn't see anyone who took that up. I don't know what. Yeah, if you can think of one, let me know. But yeah,
the oak that was called Alon Bachus, I guess, right?
So I don't know if it's the oak, right? But it could be the name of the location. Like
in Beit El also. Then.
Yeah, right.
It's like
What's the name of the building? They're not building, but it's a spot.
the apartment number.
Right. Or there used to, sadly. So when I first moved here, so this is Elvira. So the street over is Oak. It used to be a beautiful oak tree. Okay, it was called Oak Street because of the oak. And then I cut it down and built a big house. But I think I heard afterwards that it was sick or something like that. So that made me feel better. But yeah. So like they could call the entire area Oak. Crying Oak. Yeah, like Weeping Willow, Crying Oak.
Right.
Other question is, what is she doing here? Okay,
Right.
She is Rivka's nursemaid. Okay, and
When did she get here?
when did she get here? Also, that's the other question. And part of this question is going to be dependent on like the chronology, which I'm really bad when it comes to the like how old was Yaakov when he left, how old was he when he had all his kids. I know that's a whole sugya, so we're going to try not to get into that. Yeah, there's a lot of drash. Well, there's some of it is based on certain inferences, but yeah, it's rooted in the drash. And then the major question I have is, who cares, right? Why is the Torah giving us this information, right? What are we supposed to make of it or get out of it, all right? Okay, so first thing we're going to start off with is the first question of who is Devorah, but yeah.
Is there significance to the fact that there's it's not really a schema, but that there seems like there's a partial break between her burial and then God coming to Yaakov?
Interesting. I did not think about that.
I noticed that. I'm not sure if that
Good question.
It might just like, like separate.
So keep that in the background because there are Mefarshim who connect the two. Okay, yeah. So
Wait, is this supposed
yeah.
to be the same spot as where Yaakov had the dream?
Yes.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Same spot.
Then-
Or not the same spot like under the tree, but
Right.
base L is where he had the dream, and that's why I called it that. Yeah.
Okay, also, what's Yaakov doing, like, in general right now?
He just left Lavan, and
Just met Esau,
right.
and then left, and then part of his Esau, and he's now traveling to Yitzchak still.
Yeah, going back to Yitzchak
With his whole family?
with his whole family. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and we're gonna read that in a second. Okay, now when I said before, I tried to sneak this in. This is the first time she's mentioned, and I snuck in the phrase by name,
Yeah.
right? So there is a time that people theorize she is mentioned, and it's a good theory. Okay, in Berashit 24. Okay, when Yaakov meets Rachel and she goes with him to marry him. So 24:57. It said we're just reading a little bit of the context here. But so this is after he like heroically saves or does the well thing. V'yomru nikra lanara. So they said, call the maiden. That's Rachel. V'nishala espiha, and ask. I don't know what nishala espiha means. Ask her mouth, or she was called.
So they translate this after opinion, and Oculus says, and hear what she says.
Okay, fine. Right, because she's being wedded or proposed to be wedded. Vayikru Rivka, so they called Rivka. Oh, sorry, I said Rachel. I meant Rivka. Did I say Rachel? Whatever. This is Rivka. Okay. So this is when Yitzchak is, or when Eliezer is going to Eved Avraham. Right. Yeah. Sorry, not Eliezer. Eved Avraham is going to find a wife for Yitzchak. Vayikru Rivka, and they called her. V'yomru Eleh, and they said to her, Haselchi ima ish hazeh, will you go with this guy? But Tomer Elech, and she said, I will go. Yeah, I said the moving the rock thing. This is him. This is the camel watering thing. Okay. Then it says, Vayishalchu es Rivka el Chosam. They sent Rivka, their sister, the es menikta, and her nursemaid. Okay, now it doesn't say Devorah, but it says her nursemaid, which makes it sound like a specific nursemaid, like not a nursemaid. Right. Right. No, I'm saying her nursemaid, right? Not just one of her nurses, right? So I think it's not drash. I think it's reasonable to assume in this puzzle when it says Devorah, the nursemaid of Rivka, and you look back and it says the nursemaid of Rivka, it's the same person. Okay, and the Midrashim say this, but I think this is pshat. Okay. Now the question though is like this. Okay. When I read this, Devorah Meinekes Rivka, who was she nursing? Do you think? When it says Meinekes Rivka? Yaakov and Esav, right? Okay, yeah. But so the question I have here, and I couldn't find an answer to this. When it says her nursemaid and she's being sent off, so does that mean like they assigned her a nursemaid for when she does have children and like that person will nurse them? Or is this the woman who nursed her, right? That's what it sounds to me more also, right? Yeah. So
it kind of goes along with like the Chazal about how she was very young at the time. So it would make sense to have
right.
the woman who nursed her went along with her.
Right. Yeah. So if she was young, then that certainly makes sense.
Right.
So I think that's pshat. Okay, that or at least it's reasonable that it was her nursemaid. Now the question is, what is
Meaning the person who nursed her.
Who nursed her? Okay, but I'm going to modify that in a second. Okay, so if you look at the pasuk says Meinekes Rivka, Onkelos says Menikta, which is just a straight up translation of Meinekes. Okay, but there are other targumim, right? So Targum Yerushalm, Yonasan and Uziel says Umisas Devorah Pedagogta de Rivka, which is very, which is obviously the word pedagogue, right? Which is what?
Like an educator.
Yeah, like a tutor, her tutor, right? Her teacher. Okay, right? And then Targum Yerushalmi says Umisas Devorah Marbiasa de Rivka. So Marbiasa literally means the one who raised her. Okay, right?
Okay.
Yeah. And I got that from an idea in Onkelos that could I borrow that's Onkelos?
Yeah.
I just want to borrow this for 1 second. I'll keep this page. So in last week's Parsha, or is this week's Parsha?
Which one?
Last week's Parsha was when they have all the kids.
No, this week's.
Okay, yeah. I'm always living a week in the future because I prepare my shiur and I do my Onkelos on Shabbos. So
the beginning of Vayishlach is I'm sorry. The beginning of Vayishlach is
No.
is with the dream, right? The dream.
Wait,
When
hold
was the last?
Yeah.
I gave Torah. That's all I know.
on. Wait.
Peter did share on last week's part yesterday?
Uh,
Because we started and it was going sort of Beitel.
we did.
It's not confusing, fine, so then that was last week.
Okay, yeah. So Vayete, right?
Yeah, last week was
Yes.
Vayishlach.
Yeah.
Vayishlach starts off with him sending gifts to Esau.
Yeah, right. Okay, so when Rivka gives Bilhah to what do you call it? To Yaakov, when Rachel gives Bilhah, yeah. So she says, so it says like, so this is an interesting thing. So the Hebrew says, Vatomer hine amasi Bilhah bo eleha vaselid al birkai. So my mater and Bilhah will come to you, and Vaselid, and she will give birth al birkai, upon my knees. The ibane gam anochi mimena. So what does upon my knees mean? So Unklo says va'ana erabe, I will raise her. So that's marbiasa. I will raise her. Yeah. Right. Here's your puzzle you run. And then Sadigon also has a targum. Sadigon did the tafsir. He translated into Arabic, and Sadigon says Menekes is omenes. Omenes, and omenes. Do you recognize where vayhi omein?
Like a maidservant?
Nope. You're thinking of Amma, I think. Yeah. So this is. I know. Megillah. Yeah. Esther. So Mordecai brought her up, right? Mordecai raised her. So that's Mordecai was Esther's omein, like her adopted parent, basically, right? So this would imply that, caregiver, right? So this would imply that Devorah was one who raised Rivka. Okay, so that's why I said that the word nursemaid, it might be that they just call them nursemaids because typically those are the ones who do care for the kids. But you see from the Targumim, it sounds like the role is much bigger than just like nursing her and then throwing her off. Like this is like basically Rivka's mother, like in many ways. Okay, so that is the answer to question one. Is Rivka's, what was it?
Is it literally her mother?
No, not literally her mother. Her
Do we know that?
functional mother. Yeah, because then it would just say her. It would say Ima, her mother.
Okay.
We have a word, right? We do know. Yeah. Yeah. I always get mixed up. Yeah, I don't remember. Yeah. Anyway, so that's what we know about Devorah, right? Is that she was the nursemaid, pedagogue, or nanny, or governess. Okay. Now we get into the how she got there. Okay, and this is where we get this little bridge between the pshat and the drash. Okay, so we're going to do Rashi first of all. Okay, and this part I think everybody agrees with. Okay, like I didn't see anyone who disagreed with this part. All right, the second part people do disagree with. But Thomas Devorah, ma'in Devorah bebeis Yaakov. Okay, what is this matter of Devorah doing in the house of Yaakov? Ella lefisha amra Rivka liYaakov. It's because Rivka had said to Yaakov, "V'shilachti ulkachticha misham." Okay, so let me just show you the psukim here. So Beraishis Chaf Zayin Mem Beis. So this is right after Yaakov steals the bracha. Okay, Vayugad l'Rivka es divrei Esav b'nah hagadol. So the words of Esav, her older son, were told to Rivka. Vatishlach, and she sent the tikra liYaakov b'nah hakatan, and she called for Yaakov. Vatomer elav, and she told him, Hine Esav achicha misnachem l'cha l'hargecha. Your brother Esav is conspiring to kill you. The atabni, and now my son, Shema b'koli, listen to me. V'kum brach l'cha el Lavan ach yecharan. I'll get up and run away to Lavan, my brother, in Haran. The yashavti imo yamim achadim, and dwell with him for many days, or many years. Okay, I don't think it means days here. Ad asher tashuv chamas achicha, until your brother's wrath subsides. Ad shuv af achicha, until your brother returns mimacha from you. I don't know if it means departs from you or returns like from his attitude. V'shachach es asher asisa lo, and forgets what you did to him. And then she says, "V'shalachti ulkachticha misham," and I will send for you and get you from there. Lama eshkol gam shnechem yom echad. Why should I lose both of you in one day? Vatomer Rivka el Yitzchak. Okay, fine. Why did I include this pasuk? Oh, I didn't need to include that pasuk. Okay, so Rashi says that what was Devorah doing there? Shilcha Devorah etzlo lefadan aram lates mishan. So this is Rivka making good on her promise. Is she sent Devorah to Yaakov and said, "Okay, your brother's like out of the picture now. You can come back home." Okay, and that's midivri Rabbi Moshe Hadarshan limadatiha. So I learned that from Rabbi Moshe Hadarshan, and that is Rashi's answer. So she'd been sent by Rivka. Devorah had been sent by Rivka to bring Yaakov back home, and then once Esav was no longer a threat. Now, when did this happen? We don't know. I mean, we don't know that she just got there, but And this is like many years later because he's already had all of his kids, right? And he was kind of stuck, contracted to Lavan, you know. So we don't know when she got there, but that's what got her there.
Also,
Yeah.
if Rivka's promise to Yaakov was that I'll send for you once Esau forgets, then Yaakov couldn't have been afraid of Esau at that point.
Right.
Meaning
I was
if
thinking about
Rivka
that
were
also,
with
yeah.
them, then you would think that he'd be like, oh, must be on my mother's center because Esau's no longer trying to kill me.
Right. Yeah. So that is a good question. Unless he harbored some sort of skepticism about whether, I don't know, not necessarily he's not trusting his mother, but like maybe Esau's going to see me and that's going to reawaken his anger, something like that, you know? Okay. Now we get into, yeah.
How do we know that it was her who was sent?
So we don't know for sure, but
Why do we think?
the evidence in the pasuk is we know that Devorah was the maidservant, was the nursemaid of Rivka, and now suddenly Rivka's nursemaid is with Yaakov's house, and we know that she had promised, right? Presumably, yeah, she wouldn't just like go out on her own, and we know that Rivka said she's going to send for Yaakov, right? So that's like putting all together the evidence.
For that though? Like, what happened? Well, then Esau kind of over it a while ago.
Well, that's what I'm saying. We don't know exactly when she got sent, you know.
So like she got sent
and then stayed there. Yeah. So there are Mefarshim we're going to go through who explain why she was there, like why she stayed there, right? Yeah. Okay. And also we don't know how old she is. We don't know how old Devorah is.
If she was Rivka's, you know,
she's probably very old.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Okay. And that's going to factor in also. Okay. So now Rashi brings in the Agada. Okay. The Midrash. Okay. And I'm skipping a little bit of Rashi. Midrash Agada. Sham nisbaser be'evel shuhuga lo al imo shemesa. So the Alon Bachus was the place where Yaakov was informed that his mother had died. Okay. Yeah. Now, where does Rashi get this from? Well, I don't know if this is where he gets it from. Va'alon b'lashon Yevani acher. So alon bachus, alon means an oak, but in Greek, alon means another. So the plain pshat is the oak of crying or cryings, and so he's saying another crying is if you take it in Greek.
Why would I read it in Greek? Why would I do that?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I don't know. And I honestly don't know what the development of Greek was at the time of the Avos. Like, I don't know how old Greek is. I have no idea.
I have to assume it didn't exist at the time of the Avos.
Yeah, I mean,
it definitely didn't exist like the way it did in Rashi's time.
Yeah, right, definitely, yeah. So I don't know. This might just be drash. Okay, but then he said, now the question is like this. Okay, so even if you didn't read the rest of the Rashi, if I said, you know, what's weird about saying that Rivka died, and that's what the pasuk is telling us. Rashi is saying that this pasuk is telling us that Rivka died, and it's telling us that because alone in Greek means another, and it means another crying.
Oh, well then why didn't the Torah say that?
Why didn't the Torah just say that Rivka died? No, well, there's an allusion later.
Right.
Okay, so
it says they came back to you.
yeah, okay, good. Yeah, we'll see that in the Ramban. So Rashi says like this, or there's a chazal. es yom mosa, since they, meaning Rivka's people, concealed her death. Okay, now why they conceal her death? Shelo yomru habrios, so that people shouldn't say keres shiyatze as Esav mimenu. That's the womb that Esav came from. Okay, so suspend your disbelief for 1 second. So apparently they concealed Rivka's death. Since they concealed Rivka's death, af hakasav lo pirsma, so too the pasuk didn't publicize it. Okay, so what's going on there? So this is where the large Ramban comes in. Okay, and we're not going to do the whole Ramban, but the Ramban fills in a lot of important details in the Midrash. So this is all the Midrash. Okay. So Ramban says like this, but Karov Mash Amru Rabbeinu. So it is probable what Chazal said, Sheyirmos Lemisas Rivka, that this whole incident, this whole pasuk is alluding to the death of Rivka. That's why they call it crying. Now this is a key line. Remember this now for when we go through the pshat, guys. Okay. Ki ein bechi ve'anaka al hamenekes hazakena. No one's going to cry over an old nursemaid, okay? Sheyikra gam hamakum alav, such that they would name the place after her. So he's responding to a question which, again, we had in the pasuk. Why is it making a big deal about the nursemaid of Rivka? So he's saying, no, it's not making a big deal out of the nursemaid of Rivka. It's making a big deal out of Rivka's death, okay? About Yaakov bacha vis abba al ima imo hatzadekes. Yaakov was mourning and crying over his righteous mother, Asher ahavasahu, who he loved. who loved him. V'shilcha oso, and she sent him Sham there. V'lo zachsa liroso b'shuv, and he never saw her again, right? Like he was returning to see her, and he didn't see her, so he's like crying, not only because he hasn't seen her for a long time and loves her, but he didn't make it there in time. V'lachein nigla elav elokim, and that's why, again, this is another midrash, God revealed himself, uberach oso, and blessed him, lenachamo, to comfort him. Now, if you say, well, that's just a midrash, kasher asal Yitzchak aviv, same thing happened to Yitzchak, akre mos Abraham, after Abraham died, God appeared to him and yes, correct, I think so. Uvishneim amru chachamim, and regarding both of them, now this part's a little bit of a drash, birkas avelim bircho, that God gave them the bracha of avelim, which is something that is a halakhic institution, which is, I'm saying it's a drash because halakha wasn't around then. The shiur lezeh, now this is what you were saying, there's a support for this theory that Rivka died. Masha amur lamata, what it says below, a few psukim later. Vayavo Yaakov el Yitzchak aviv mamre kiryas ha'arbeh. Yaakov came to Yitzchak, his father, in mamre kiryas ha'arbeh. V'ilu haisa Rivka sham, and if Rivka were there, hayamazkir, the Torah would say el aviv ve'el imo, to his father and mother. He hasholechas also. She's the one who sent him Sham. V'hagoremes lo kol tova. She's the one who caused all this good. Yitzchak ba'atzasa tziva oso lelecha Sham. And Yitzchak is the one, on her advice, sent him there. So she is a big character and should be mentioned. And the fact that she's not mentioned means she must have been dead. Okay, so that's the Ramban putting together these pieces. Okay, so it seems reasonable. Yeah. Okay. Then he quotes Rashi, because of Lirbiנו Shlomo, ulefi she'elimu yom mosa shelo yikalulu habrios. Keres shiatam mimena Esav af hakasav lo pirsama. By the way, either the Ramban was using a wrong manuscript of Rashi, or the manuscript we have of the Ramban is wrong, because apparently the good manuscripts of Rashi don't say that people would curse her. They say that people would say about her. Okay, I don't know if it makes that much of a difference, but
or our Rashi is wrong.
No, our Rashi is right. In this case, our Rashi is right. Yeah. Yeah, that's the common one. But apparently, like the authoritative Rashi does say, and this is even the Shadal says this, but all Torah also says it. Yeah. Right. So he quotes Rashi saying that people will say about her the womb that gave birth to Esav, and that's a bad thing. Okay. Midrash Chachamim. So this is based on a midrash, another midrash in Psikta Durav Kahana. V'hine gam Leah lo yazkir. Okay, so Leah's death is also not mentioned, which is weird. Okay, all right. So aval hakavana lahen, but the reason for them is mipnei shehizkir hamisa beremes v'tala hadavar b'minikta. So in other words, like this, Ramban saying, don't think that this midrash comes from the fact that the Torah doesn't mention the death of Rivka at all, because it doesn't mention the death of Leah, and no one is like making up drashos about Leah's death. Rather, Chazal are responding to the fact that it is alluding to the death of Rivka, but not saying it outright. So that's what this midrash is coming to explain. Now, why is it? The Kever shedibir ba lama yasir inyan v'lo gilahu. So once you're alluding to it, why don't you just spell it out? So here's the answer, and this is also a good pshat, I think. The tam haklala eno mechubar. So he says the question's weird, or he says this question: why would they curse her for this? Shehari hiskiru b'misas Yitzchak. They mention at the death of Yitzchak, vayikbru oso Esav v'Yakov banav, right? Like they mention Esav there, so it's not like just mentioning Esav is going to lead to cursing. About it's possible to say that she did not have a respected death or an honorable death. Why? Yaakov wasn't there. The Esav sone osa. Yaakov hated, or sorry, Esav hated her. V'lo yavo shama. I guess maybe Ramban holds that he found out that she was the one behind the whole swap thing. V'lo yavo shama, and she wasn't going to be there.
Or because she helped Yaakov escape.
Or because she helped Yaakov escape, or because it was known that Yaakov was her favorite son, and so any of these things, right? Yeah, exactly, right. Yitzchak kehu einav. Yitzchak was blind.
According to like the commentary,
yeah,
it quotes an earlier Ramban, which I don't know, but it just says that it's because Rivka favored Yaakov.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. Yeah. That's going to lead to more resentment. Yeah. The inenu yotze mi beso. So Yitzchak was sitting there blind; he couldn't leave his house. V'lachein lo ratza hakasuv lahaskir sheipruhu b'nei ches. So that's why the pasuk didn't want to mention that the b'nei ches, who are the people who she didn't want her son to get married to, buried her. There's another midrash that says that. What was that?
Why is it bad that b'nei ches?
So it's not bad that they bury her. It's bad that that she wasn't buried by anyone in her family because of all these family drama issues or like negative issues. It's like the only example that came to my mind, and this is a weird example. Do you know about Mozart's tomb?
No.
The answer is he doesn't have one. He was just thrown to a pit. Okay, because he was so in debt that from all of his like money spending issues that he was buried in a pauper's grave and no one knows where he's buried. And so like musicians are kind of disturbed by this because they feel like Mozart should have like a grand grave because he's like so good. So there's something like disturbing about like a great person being buried in like a less than savory way. Especially if there's this family like drama involved, and
especially if, as Rambam saying, she was buried by the people whom she kind of like
yeah,
wasn't really so happy about.
Exactly.
Lead to her being cursed though by them, you think, maybe?
Okay, so
like, yeah, I'm grateful.
that's funny. That's possible, right? So just grumbling the whole time. Yeah. He brings out another version of the midrash. Yeah.
Who is B'nai Ches? Is that people or is that like the sons of sin? Or something?
Oh no, this is B'nai Ches are people. Yeah.
Ephraim, right?
Yeah.
That's where, like Avraham settled was like
That's
in like within the sons of face.
yeah, not good minos though. They're Canaanites, which were not the best of people. Ramban then quotes another version of the midrash. Amru at mote kishemesa Rivka. You'll find that when Rivka died, Amrin. So they said, Man Yipo Kama, who's going to escort her, who's going to like accompany, bury her. Avraham Mace, Avraham's dead. Yitzchak Yoshe Beves Einav Kehos. Yitzchak is sitting blind in the house. Yaakov Halach Lo Lefad Ram. Yaakov went away. Yipok Esav Rashia Kama V'Yemrun Bir Yasa Litin Bizaya Daha Kedain Yamkin. If Esav's the one who buries her, I guess Esav had a bad reputation. They're going to say this guy, Bir Yasa Litin, people are going to curse him. Bizaya, this degraded guy, Daha Kedain Yamkin, she raised this guy. Okay. Ma'asu, what did they do? Hotziu Mitasa Balayla. They took her out to bury her at night. Okay. So it's like really, I think they're B'nai Ches. I think this is consistent with that. So in other words, like, and it says, Amar Rabbi Yossi Bar Chanina, Lefisha Hotziu Mitasa Balayla, Lo Pirshu Haksuvi Misasa Elamin Tzad. Since they buried her at night, then the psukim don't publicize her death. They only refer to her death like from the side. Hadahu dixi vayikra shemo alon bachus shtei bechios. They darshan it not from the word alone in Greek. They say bachus is, don't read it bachus, but read it bachos, shtei bechios, two cryings. That's a better drash in my opinion than going to Greek. Hadahu dixi vayara elokim el Yaakov vayvarach so ma bercho birkas ve'elam bercho adkan. Okay, fine. So this whole thing basically is saying that why does the Torah say this whole thing about Devorah? Really, we don't care about Devorah. Really, we care about Rachel. And why does it say Rachel? Because she had like this less than savory burial, and like we want to respect her kavod. Okay, and then Ramban ends with this last thing. V'hinei bavur heos as Esav yechidi b'kvurasa. This is his own edition. This is not from the Midrash. Since Esav would have been alone in burying her, pachadu min haklala. Then they were afraid of the curse, and they didn't think that she'd have kavod. So it sounds like he's learning they would curse her because of Esav. Like imagine like, I don't know, this is a bad example. Imagine like you have this woman with one son who dies, and her only son is like this convict. So he's going to come to town, and now everyone's going to be talking about, oh, so and so's son, the criminal. It's going to be bad for her. That's what the allusion is. Okay, then he throws in, and this part is like segueing into our next part. So now this is your question, Oren. Why was she there and stayed there? Okay. Because after she came with Rivka, yeah. No, back to Rivka's house.
Oh, I'm saying like Rivka's house. No, after she came with Rivka, i.e. to Israel.
Oh, okay, right.
So she went back to her land.
She went back to her land. The Ata Tavo im Yaakov Liros Kvirta. And now she's going with Yaakov to see her mistress. Yeah. Okay. So she wants to go back. Yeah, Oren.
Just two back questions from before.
Yeah.
Is the Greek thing is that from Rashi or is that from the Midrash?
I don't know actually.
Yeah, it's kind of unclear here.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Rashi definitely says it.
I mean, here it says Rashi quoting Berashi Rabba.
Yeah, so then it's probably from the Midrash. I actually have the Midrash on another document, which we could look at later. Okay,
So
but
wait,
yeah.
second question, way more general.
Yeah.
Possibly not the place. Was he just like a bad guy, or was he just not a great
All right, so
guy?
this is another thing with the Midrash versus the pshat. In the
Yeah.
pshat, it does not seem like he was the worst guy, but the Midrash attaches all these other crimes to him. You know,
Yeah.
Everybody's like at least Torah, but also anybody who's bad in Torah.
yeah, they exaggerate.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's I read. There's an article I can send you
I think
on.
there's writing a book on this about why Chazal like.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's an article about why Chazal did that. It's a midrashic style, but yeah, that's one of my things I don't like about why I prefer the pshat over the midrash. But I understand the purpose of the midrash.
Like, you hear all these stories about Lavan,
Yeah.
and, like,
Well, Lavan really did seem to be
I
bad.
know, but, like,
Yeah.
like, there's like the like the drash, like he comes out to greet Yaakov, it was only because he remembered,
Oh yeah. Right.
So
It
why
definitely
can't he
ascribes
just
worse things to him.
be excited?
Yeah, right. Yeah, I mean, but he definitely cheated Yaakov. There's like ample. Yeah. Okay, but now this. Yeah.
If that's the case, then methodologically, how much stock should we put in arguments that are based off of those midrash?
So this is the methodological question that I wanted to get to, which is, or that I was interested in, which is this whole midrashic narrative, and he's quoting many midrashim, is an interesting blend of legitimate inferences from the actual psukim and supplied with like other stuff. You know, all the stuff about Devorah coming and being sent, that's from the psukim, you know, and the stuff about him when he gets home and it doesn't mention Rivka, and it must be that she's dead, that also stands to reason. And it is weird that the Torah doesn't mention her death, but then the Torah doesn't mention Leah's death either, you know, so that's like not a question on her. But then this part is the part that really relies on the narrative of Esav being such a Russia, you know. But even these facts, though, the fact that like, I mean, Esav was, I mean, gallivanting about like with his wives and stuff.
Rivka didn't like Esav, that's for
And
sure.
Rivka also didn't like Esav, right. So yeah.
She didn't like Esav per se, but she didn't like his wife.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and so there's already family friction there. Yeah, right. So that's why I'm fascinated by this midrash, because it is, to me, this seems like midrash that is on the pshat, you know, or that is highlighting the pshat, even though it's not pshat in the sense that you would naturally read the story that way. And that's what we're going to do right after this. Okay, that's what we're going to do after I summarize this. But this last line of the Ramban does connect to pshat. Okay, you'll see in a second. So he's saying either that's why she stayed with him, shnis aska begidul b'nei Yaakov, or she participated in raising the children of Yaakov. Okay, l'chavod Rivka, out of the honor of Rivka, ula ahavasa, and out of her love for Rivka, v'haisa beveso, because she was in Yaakov's house. So that is a fantastic thing. If she raised Rivka, and then now she's raising Yaakov's kids. Okay.
I know like the old the old woman.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah. And you know, this is not unusual. Like this happens a lot in families even now. Like, you know, like if the mother can't be with kids, then the kids are raised by their grandmother, you know, this is essentially like, you know, a grandmother figure. So this answer now that we get from the Midrash, Rashi, and Ramban is, why does the Torah give us this sparse report? Sorry. You know, I'm mixing up two midrashic accounts. It's not that she was sent to inform Yaakov that his mother died. Yeah. Hold on. I got this mixed up. Hold on. How does Yaakov figure out that she died?
We haven't really been told.
Yeah. Where did I read this?
I've heard that idea also.
Yeah, that she went out to tell him that, and then she died.
Yeah.
And so then he's mourning both
There
of
was,
them.
like, a whole, like, there was like she was maybe overwhelmed by like.
Yes.
or something.
Right. Yeah. So there's another. Yeah. Now that obviously can't be reconciled with the fact that she raised the kids, you know, but that's another thing I read. I'm trying to remember who said this, that she was sent to tell Yaakov that his mother died and then she died. And so he's mourning both of them, you know. But the point really of the Midrash and Rashi and the Ramban is that the Torah is alluding to Rivka's death. Okay. Thus ends the midrashic portion, okay, which I want to set aside now to compare to the pshat. Now there are two pshat approaches, okay, yeah. Also, an additional answer to number one, who is Devorah? Perhaps she also helped raise Yaakov's kids. That was what Ramban mentions. Okay, now we get to the thing that started this whole shiur. Yeah.
One goes on.
Yeah, there's more. There's a little bit more. I just didn't see it as relevant for the purposes of this shiur, but you can read it if you want. It's not that long, right?
No.
Yeah, you want to read it?
I got a lot.
Yeah.
Can I just read it in English?
Yeah.
All right. It's also possible that Devorah is not the same wet nurse of which it is written they come to offer Rivka their sister and nurse,
Right.
but was a different wet nurse who had remained in the house of Lavan and Bethuel after Rivka left there to marry Yitzchak. And now Yaakov was bringing her with him to quote sustain her in her old age in honor of his mother. For such is the manner of esteemed people that have many wet nurses. For it is unlikely that this old woman should have been the messenger that Yaakov's mother
Right.
sent to him
Yeah.
to come home as Rav Moshe Hadarshan.
Yeah,
said
right.
by Rashi.
Right. The age doesn't work out. Yeah, right. Yeah. Okay, so now Avraham ben Rambam. Okay. All right, this is what started the whole shiur. Vatamas Devorah. All right, so Devorah died. Sipur HaTorah lazem more el godel tzidkusa. This story of the Torah is telling us about her Devorah's great righteousness. Okay. The Efshar shahayu mevakrim es kivra. It's
like 1 plus.
Yeah, it's possible that yeah, it's possible that they, and that's exactly his argument. Like, why is the Torah telling about this? And why is the Torah telling us about this and identifying the place? Right? So he says, Efshar shahayu mevakrim es kivra. It's possible that they used to visit her grave, umitzpalim sham, and daven there. Okay, he doesn't mean Yaakov, he means Klal Yisrael. Okay, Kamo shneshei Yisrael hayu nikraos al shema. Just like Jewish women are named after Devorah Livracha for blessing, Kamo shematzanu u Devorah isha neviah, as we find that Devorah the judge was named after this Devorah. Now, the footnote in the good edition of Avraham ben Rambam says he looked far and wide, and no one says this except for Avraham ben Rambam. Okay, so it says that this was his chiddush, but it's not an unreasonable chiddush that this is a Devorah that was associated with the Avos. So what, you're going to say that Devorah was named after a bee? Like that's what Devorah means, or you say she's named after a bee, or she's named after Devorah, this Menekes Rivka. So he says she was a tzaddikus, okay, and that the Torah highlights it because people would like respect her by davening at her grave, or not respect her by that, but davening at her grave and then name people after her. And the Torah wants to call attention to her righteousness. V'amru tam b'halichas. Oh, so now he says the same thing that Rashi says. V'tamru amru tam halichas Devorah elav ki Rivka shilcha osa kadei shetavi oso elaha. So that's where I got it. No, yeah, never mind. Rivka sent her to bring him back to her. Kamosha amra lol, as she said to him, shilati ulekachticha. And now this part I didn't quite understand. Okay, I think this is similar to what you were saying. B'tachen, it's possible shekasher karav Yaakov el haaretz, that when Yaakov got close to home, yatsa Devorah likraso, she went out to greet him. V'haisa mi'itza alav lavo maher, and she was like hurrying to get there quickly. And I don't know if that means that like that's what killed her. You know, he doesn't say that, but like, why is he saying like she rushed out? I don't know if he's trying to explain how she died. I'm not really sure. So that's Avraham ben Rambam, but it gets more radical. Okay. So
was he advocating for this idea of davening by her? I mean,
that's the second part of the shiur. Yeah. We're gonna put that aside for now. Just focus on the Devorah thing. He's saying that they did it, right? Yeah, right. Correct. That's what it sounds like, right? Yeah.
Isn't that kind of an assumption? I mean, there's another methodology question. Isn't that kind of an assumption though that if the Avo did it, then it's a good thing? That's not
Well, he's not saying that the Avos did it. He's saying that Klal Yisrael did it.
Much later.
Yeah, much later. Just like he's saying, like later in history, they named people after
Well,
Devorah.
I thought he was using that as an explanation for why they were there now.
No.
Oh,
Yeah,
so
he's saying that the reason why the Torah is highlighting this location now is what later on led people to go back to that spot and associate it with Devorah and daven there. Yeah. Mevakrim is to visit. Yeah.
Oh, like Kever.
Yeah, Bikur Cholim, yeah. Do we know where this is? I don't know actually. We should look it up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is he almost attaining the conclusion here? He's saying that since people he's almost saying it's from his writing. He's saying that since people went to daven there, it must be because she's great.
It's a good question. What direction?
Writing it in like a weird way.
Yeah. It's a good question. Which direction he's going, right? I don't know if he's saying that. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure. I hear the question, right? In other words, either the Torah, because the Torah named this, therefore Jews went there, or he's saying that he knew Jews went there and they got it from this.
Right.
Yeah. Reverse engineering. Yeah. Okay, now the Abrabbanel says something even more extreme. Amru v'tamas Devorah minekas Rivka hu lahodia shemesa shama hazakena yiras Hashem hahi. So he doesn't call her tzedekah, but practically he does. She was a God-fearing woman. Okay, Uvazet tzrichim anachnu l'divrei Kabbalah, and we need the midrash for this. Amru shemipnei sherivka amra liYaakov shilachti lekachtika misham shilcha Devorah etzlo l'fadan aram lahotzio misham. So she sent Devorah to go fetch Yaakov. V'lachus al yaladav, and she sent Devorah to, lachus literally means to care or to have mercy on, but I think here means to care for his kids. Ki haisa isha chachama, because she was a wise woman. Ubavur shahaisa etzlam b'madregas imam bachu alaha, and since she was like a mother to all of them, then they cried over her. So that's where I got the title this year, that she's like a fifth matriarch. You know, that if she raised all the shvatim, you know, she raised all the kids. That's a big level. And then the one who goes the furthest is the Malbim. Okay, Malbim says, "V'tamas Devorah modia shahaisa tzadekes." Okay, this teaches that she was a tzadekes. V'kasher mesa Rivka, and when Rivka died, v'isa hi k'mosh kasav chazal the Esav Chazar. No, is that the Esav or is that a typo?
Where?
I don't know if it's the Esav or Va'asu, or it's supposed to be something else. Chazar Az El Aviv, and they went back to their father, right? Yeah. Oh yeah, sorry, yeah. No, the Esav Chazar El Aviv. So here's how he's learning the chronology. Okay, Rivka dies. Esav goes back. Now he can come back because his mother, who hated him, was not in the house. Lo yachla lisbol ra'as Esav v'nashav. Devorah couldn't stand the evil of Esav and his wives. V'yatza el Yaakov, and she went to Yaakov v'tamasham. Okay, yeah. So I guess she kind of like left Yitzchak in the dust, which is kind of funny. Okay, but she. Yeah, exactly right. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, the midrash. Yeah, right. Yeah. So it's interesting. I don't know to what extent. I'm not familiar with the Malbim's commentary on Torah, so I don't know to what extent he like takes those as fact. Okay. Then the second thing. Shazach, this is an interesting one. Shazachsa lamus achre hatahara ha'amura v'avodas Hashem ulikaver b'makom kadosh b'beis el. So she was zoche. She merited to die after the purity that was said. I don't know what that's talking about, and the service of God, and to be buried in a holy place in Beis El asher niglu sham Elokim. So he's saying the fact that she was buried in Beis El. Oh yeah, Mizbeach. Yeah, correct. Thank you. I read that tonight here, that the timing of her death and the location of her death indicates the Zechus, because she was buried at this base L, right? You know, and then this is the most interesting one. Have you ever heard this idea that the death of tzaddikim is mechaper, it atones? Right, so that sounds like the death of tzaddikim atones for people. So if you take that literally, it sounds like a Jesus idea, right? Okay, yeah. So I've heard people explain it before, but here's his explanation. How does it work? Shemisas tzaddikim mechaperes al yedei hahesped shemaspidim alehem. So when a tzaddik dies, people eulogize the tzaddik, and the eulogies basically perfect people. Okay. Yeah, umaskirim zechiyosehem. They mention the zechiyos of the tzaddik, vishavim b'tshuva, and then people do tshuva because they're inspired by how the tzaddik lived. That's a good shot, you know, of like, yeah. The alzeh amru vayikra shemo alon bachus. That's why he named the place alon bachus. B'shagam l'chazal she's pidu az gam al Rivka, and according to Chazal, they also eulogize Rivka there. V'zen yitztarach l'zechus hamizbeach shebana sham ad shenigle alav Hashem shenis. So he learns that because they were involved in eulogizing Devorah and Rivka and doing tshuva, that's why he merited God appearing to him a second time.
That's interesting that the timing
Yeah.
weird in the Bua, according to like I would say like I guess the Rambam.
Yes.
Because if he's distraught.
Yes, exactly. That's a great point. Yeah, right. So in other words, this whole death triggered a tshuva process because they're now reflecting on these two righteous women who died, and then as a result of that, then he gets Nevuah a second time. And that fits in really nice with the flow of the psukim because he connected the Mizbeach to the death of Devorah to like this other vision, you know? So these three answers are that it's highlighting the righteousness of Devorah, who was like a fifth matriarch, and that's why the Torah mentions her. Okay, yeah.
But why? If she wasn't mentioned there, then there would be no problem. Like, it can.
Well, no, okay. That's why the Malbim has the best answer for that, which is
why is this pasuk here?
According to the Malbim, is to do two things: to teach you the righteousness of Devorah, which is what other Mefarshim are, you know, before said, which is that this is a righteous woman, and we need to highlight the fact that this is a righteous person. because talking about tzaddikim is a good thing, because the more tzaddikim, the better. We learn from them.
About their righteous deeds.
It does. She was the one who raised the kids.
It doesn't say that, it just says she died.
Drash.
Right. That's why he's filling in the details that she was sent to go raise. What was she doing in Yaakov's house? So if she's the one who raised Rivka, and now she's in Yaakov's house, presumably she's raising his kids.
But why not say that?
It does. It says that she was the nursemaid.
It says she was Rivka's nursemaid.
Then why isn't there like an extra like possibly the Torah? Like, why
Yeah. Or here's a better question. Okay. The Torah says that Yocheved got hired to be Moshe's nursemaid. Okay.
What? Okay.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That was a whole boss power thing, right? Now, does it say that she taught Moshe and gave him good values and all the other stuff? No. But of course, that's what happened if she was raising him,
Sure.
right? So same thing here is that this is the nursemaid who was from Rivka, who raised her as a tzaddikus and was sent to Yaakov and was there living with him, with his kids. So the Torah doesn't need to spell out every single detail,
And also,
If it just said Devorah died and we didn't know who Devorah was, then I'd have the question. But Devorah, the nursemaid of Rivka, then that we can fill in the blanks.
but I think
Like the Rambam's like 3 categories of things that you can get out of Chumash.
Yeah,
It doesn't seem to fit in any of them.
we'll see what the Rambam says on this one.
Oh.
Okay, yeah. You'll like the Rambam. Okay, you'll like the Rambam better than this. Okay, so next we have the Rambam. Okay, so again, just to go back, the Rambam style is at the end of every section. He lists the lessons you get out of them, out of the thing, and there are 3 types of lessons: lessons in mitzvos, lessons in midos, and lessons in deos, which is philosophical ideas. So he says. Hatolas Achad Asar, the 11th lesson in the story is in midos. V'hu sheroi la'adam ligmul chesed im hamesim asher higiu lo mehem tov b'chayehem, is that it is proper for a person to do kindness for the dead, meaning for people who died, if they received kindness during their lifetime. Now that is a radical idea because you could just say, I'm not doing anything good for these people. They're dead, right? But he's saying, right, it's a huge idea in halacha, which is kavod hames as an act of kindness. And I don't know other ancient societies, but I'm guessing that a lot of other ancient societies, if they had burial practices, it's more for like afterlife fantasy things, not because you are doing hakaras hatov and like recognizing like what this person did for you.
I feel like it's usually to help that person in the afterlife.
Right. That's also right. That's what I meant by like afterlife fantasies.
That is kindness to them, right? Like I want to make sure my dad goes to heaven or whatever.
Right, but I'm saying we don't have that
Make sure
idea.
he's buried properly.
Right, but we don't have that idea that like
Right, I
you're
know.
right. Yeah, I'm saying like we should appreciate how radical of an idea this is, and then he says ulazeh seeper should.
It seems like he's saying that it's a midos thing of. Maybe I'm spinning it.
Yeah.
But it's like it's a recognizing of the good that you've got.
Yeah, correct.
That's an internal thing.
Yeah, right. It's midos.
You
Yeah.
do it through the.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying.
Like the plea of like your.
Yeah, exactly.
Probably also to publicize it, like
Mhm.
what Mullen said.
That's also a good idea, right.
People act like how they
Correct, right. Yeah, good. Let's just finish this up, just to get that full picture. Ulazeh seper shekvar kar Yaakov alon bachus. That's why he named it the Oak of Crying. Shem ha'alon asher nikbara sham dvora minekas Rivka. Kizem ima shiur shekvar bach hasham. He's showing how much he's crying there because of how important she was to him. Okay. Ulazos hasiba be'ena hitziv Yaakov matzeva al kavuras Rachel. For that same reason, obviously not now, Yaakov sets up a monument at the burial of Rachel, the ofen shehitziv osa, in a way that like it would last. Kadeshi shar zachra zman aruch, so that her memory would last for a long time. Ki bezeh mi gemilus chasadim mashal loyan, because that's a great gemilus chasadim. So he's not saying that Devorah was a tzaddikus, or fearing Hashem, but he is saying that she helped raise him, and you for hakaras hatov, for your midos, you should do chesed. You should pay back chesed with chesed, even if the other person can't get it. And that's like a good universal idea. Like hold on a second. Is this my neighbor? Okay. Hopefully it's not a break-in. No. But you gotta worry about that in Far Rockaway. Worst thing was 2 summers ago, the summer that COVID hit, I went back to Seattle, and you remember what travel was like that summer. I mean, I don't know if you traveled that summer. Yeah, exactly, right. Yeah. So the week I got back, I get a call from my downstairs neighbor saying, "You guys aren't home, are you?" And I was like, "No." He's like, I hear stuff going on upstairs." I was like, "Oh no." And I was like, I have to wait the whole summer to like figure out what's going on. Turns out it was the clock fell and made it sound like from below that like someone was like stomping around or something like that. But anyway, side point. Okay. Anyway, so he's not holding that she was a tzaddikus or that she was God-fearing, but it's the idea in chesed. Okay. So yeah.
So he's
To teach us chesed.
right, but I'm saying it's chesed of she raised him, not chesed that she taught him about God.
Right, exactly. Yeah. That she presumably he's going with a minimalist thing.
Right.
She nursed him or she raised him or something, Okay. All right.
But he didn't say anything about how she got there and why she was there.
He did not say that. I think in his commentary he did say the thing about she sent for him because that's pshat,
Right.
but not anything in the timeline. I'll have to check that. Okay, now Shadal says, and I'm just using Donnie Klein's English translation of Shadal because I had it. Devorah says she had previously gone from Haran to the land of Canaan with Rebecca above. So he holds it is the same Rivka, the same Menekas that I mentioned there. But apparently, as per Nachmani, she had gone back to her country. And when Yaakov went on his way, she accompanied him in order to see Rebecca, and also because she was attached to Rachel and Leah and their children. Okay, so
kind of like amalgamating.
yeah.
Okay.
And he says, the purpose for which this event is recorded is to teach us a good character trait, to show honor even to a nurse who devotes herself to raising her suckling, even after the child has grown, and to this nurse in particular who left her land and her family to go with Rebecca. So he's saying there's a little bit of lech lecha action going on there also, right? Okay, ish. The weeping and the name of the place after the weeping served as a sign that they had respected her during her life and had loved her in return, right? So just another good character trait, kavod, karsatov, wherever it is. I know what I was going to say when I got the phone call, that if you've ever, I have only done this in one case. I wrote a thank you letter to my third grade teacher who taught a lesson that apparently was so impactful that it affected like not only how I view myself, but how I teach all my students. And she really appreciated it. Like I don't know how many like people get.
It literally popped into my head the other day.
Yeah.
It's like I remembered something that somebody had told me. It was maybe like last year or something like that.
Yeah.
And I was like, I should get. Oh, I know who it was. It was Ari Ginsberg. We had a conversation about the fundraiser. Ari Ginsberg gave me his number to talk to him.
Yeah.
And we talked about like mass celebrations and whatnot.
Yeah.
He was like trying to like get me to like argue like one side. He's like trying to like his point was to get me to say I don't know why.
Yeah.
And eventually I got there.
Yeah.
And I realized that really caused like a paradigmatic like a switch in my head about
Yeah.
how I think about the things. I was like, I should get his email. His email.
Yeah.
Like 2 sentences.
Definitely. It's definitely a great idea. So, and then he throws in this thing from Virgil in the Aeneid, however you pronounce it. Similarly, we find that nurses were held in affection by the ancients. See Virgil, Aeneid, book 7 at the beginning. Thou too, Catia, the nurse of the Aeneas, has by thy death given the deathless fame to the shores. And then Donnie Klein, the translator, says, in this portion of the Aeneid, the hero is depicted as stopping to bury his nurse in a port city that came to be named after her. Okay, right? Yeah, so it's like this is he's saying this was a thing in the ancient world. Okay, yeah. So Shadal was he was born in 1800, died in 1865.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So that's the last answer, which is Rabban Shadal, to teach us that we should repay with kindness those who do the kindness to us, even if it was something that happened a long time ago. Okay. So
Shadal kind of also draws from like as far as why she was there.
Right.
He says that she was attached to her way. She had all that.
Correct. Not necessarily from righteousness, but because of attachment. Correct. Yeah. It is a mix in that sense.
Goes into what he was saying about Karas and Shov,
Yeah.
Meaning they would have all had a Karas and Shov there.
Yeah. Exactly. Yes.
So those more specific talk about like nurses in particular.
Yes.
Rabbi was more saying like, to be good to dead people.
Yes, correct. Yeah. And I think partially that's Rabak's style because he in the Toalos he universalizes the lessons. So if you were writing this as a parish, he would say that's why they did it, But when he does this Toalos, he says it in the most universal way possible, So this is what I want to like think about just methodologically, and I don't have definitive like ideas here. This is exploration, okay? But the first answer, the midrashic one about this whole acrobatics about like it's alluding to Rachel's to Rivka's death and like because the Greek word or the crying and then why doesn't want to say it? Because the burial was in secret. You get the meme with Charlie from Always Sunny, the conspiracy theory, yeah, right. Yeah. you get that sort of vibe with if you put it all together, then everything makes sense, And to my mind, these other two answers, even though they're also relying on inferences, it feels different. Certainly the third answer is very conservative in positing as little as possible. You still have to posit that whatever, she came back or whatever. And then the Rambam and Ravid and Abraham, or not Ravid, Malbim and Abrabnel, it is positing stuff that the Torah is highlighting her because of her righteousness, and otherwise, why is Yaakov crying, so much? Or sorry, why is he monumental, making a monument for her? But to me, that it feels different than the midrashic acrobatics,
Only thing that I would say something that draws me towards the acrobatics.
Yeah, sure.
Is that it pulls together 3 or 4 different random psukim
Correct.
things that are brought in at different times.
Right. So this is
why she said she was going to send some money.
Yeah.
Right. Just all that.
So this is the question that I have about this midrash. Now I'm saying this midrash because there's different genres and categories of midrashim. So, okay, going back to my Rabag Sunday shiur. Okay, I like learning Torah to use Torah. Okay, and Torah is a regimen that brings those who practice it properly to true human success, which is knowledge of God insofar as is possible for man. Okay, right. So when I learn Torah, I like to get stuff out of Torah, and that's what attracts me to the Rabag's approach. So when I read Shadal and Rabag, I get stuff out of it, right? That this is emphasizing the need for gratitude and kindness, and it's an example of how far people can go. That he's literally memorializing his maidservant. When I read the Avraham and Rambam and the Abrabnel and the Malbim, I'm okay, fine. So that's also an idea in perfection, and she was a tzedekah and whatever. When I read the midrash that Rashi and Rambam quote, my question is, what do I get? Now, what we do get is a small idea in Kavod HaMes, which is that if generally speaking, burying the dead is for Kavod HaMes, is honoring them. But if there's going to be any semblance of or any degradation, so then that would negate the Kavod. But is that what we get? Or is what they were trying to do what you said, Chaim, of their goal is not to teach us lessons in this case. Obviously other midrash, their goal is just to try to explain every textual anomaly in a way that creates a narrative that's flowing.
Also, it's because Rashi tends to do that. Rashi
Yeah.
goes with the flow of what's going on. He brings in the drash just to tell you what's going on with the psukim.
Right.
And he tends to pull things together.
Right.
So that kind of makes me want to say that also. Which I don't mind that. I like the idea of creating a nice.
Yeah, it is definitely nice. But my question is what do we get out of it, or what is
aside from clarity in psukim?
Yeah, aside from clarity in psukim, and I'm not knocking clarity in psukim, understanding the Devar Hashem without any tangible purpose is no worse than understanding something in nature that doesn't have any practical applications, just but to appreciate the chachma,
Mm-hmm.
But it's more of a question, a selfish question on my part. What am I going to spend my time with? What am I going to spend my time on? Or what am I looking for in learning Chumash? If you look at the proportions of the shiur, we spent, I know part of it was going through the pshat, but we spent 45 minutes going through the midrashim and tying them together. And then we spent 25 minutes getting this, or 20 minutes getting this last part, And when I sit down, what do I want to do with my time? Do I want to put together if the narrative rewards me with deeper understanding into what I can learn from the Abbas, then definitely good. And if you're going to tell me I have to do all this in order to create the possibility for that to happen, I'm also good with that, But yeah.
Yeah, well, I was kind of going to say that.
Yeah.
At least to a certain degree, you need the midrashim, or at least you need to bring it all together.
Yeah.
That way you have a base to jump off from to get practical ideas.
Right.
Otherwise, it just makes no sense.
But you see that Rabag and Shadal and Avraham and Abrabnel and Malbim, well, I guess Malbim did this a little bit. They did not necessarily make recourse to all that stuff,
Not all of it, but they definitely seem to make recourse to some of
They
it.
make recourse to the psukim of the V'shalachticha ulekachticha misham that Rivka sent Devorah, and that's basically it. Yeah.
Well, where do they get the idea that she was a really good person?
From the fact that the Torah memorializes her death.
Talk about it at all.
Yeah, and memorializes her death. That Yaakov, why would Yaakov? It's really from. It's funny. It's from the Ramban's question, right? The Ramban said at the very beginning, you're not going to cry over an old maid, and Rambam says, yeah, so she must have not just been an old maid. She must have been a tzaddikas. And then, and again, Rambam has a good argument with Devorah Hashofetes. Like, look, people name their kids after stuff all the time, but like, again, it's not an accident that the only Devorah in Chumash is this Devorah, and then a righteous Devorah was named after her. She's just like there's a kid in my music camp who was Jewish but not religious. This was before I was Jewish, and his name was Amiel. And I had never heard anyone named Amiel. You know who Amiel is? No, it's in the Chumash. It's one of the Meraglim. Okay, so
I'm gonna find random
yeah. So I feel like Israelis do this, but like I think I looked it up at the time because we were becoming religious at the time, and I was like, I don't think I told him. I was like, that's like one of the bad guys, So I asked him, I was like, how did your parents name you? And they said, we just we opened up a Bible and like looked for something that like sounded good, and it does sound good.
I think one of the B'nai, like Asa or something like
Yeah.
that, is like Almam or something like that.
Oh yeah.
I remember reading through that and I was like, that's so interesting.
This is the first year, yeah.
That like that he has that, and then it's also like the Moshe's father.
Right. Yeah, this is the first year it occurred to me. Like there are Jewish women named Yehudit or Yehudis, right? And like I always think of that as like the heroic Yehudis, which is probably who they're named after. But it only occurred to me this year. Oh, Yehudi is Esau's wife, right? Like, oh yeah, like yeah. Anyway, names. Okay, so yeah, I don't know what exactly to make out of this. But you it seems like you get what I'm sensing here. Like the activity that the pshat Mefarshim are engaged in feels like a different type of activity than what the Ramban and Rashi are engaged in. Not all the time, because obviously the Ramban and Rashi also do this stuff sometimes. But like it's just wanted to highlight that. I don't have any point I'm making from that other than like this is an interesting like example of the pshat versus the drash. Okay, ready? Yeah. The last part of this year, do we still have energy to do the Kever thing really quickly? Okay, so it's not that much. Violating the rule again. Chat. And I never read chat during shiur. Also weird that there are only 3 women's deaths that are mentioned.
This is all the way in the beginning.
Okay, fine. Yeah. But I'll tell you, I'll keep telling people again and again, I don't read chat during shiur. So and unless I happen to see it when I exit full screen. So you can chat all you want, but okay. You know the drill. Okay, so I want to show you. So this is the yeah, I'm sharing the whole screen, I think. Yeah, actually I can close the PowerPoint because we don't need the PowerPoint anymore. So this is in the not brand new, the very new edition of Avraham ben Rambam, which is fantastic, written by or put together by Moshe Maimon. Okay, that's his name. Okay, a descendant of the Rambam. So he is. I don't know much about him, but there are articles. There's an interview that was done with him recently. Basically, what he did was he redid. Avraham ben Rambam wrote a פירוש on Beraishis and Shemos. Okay, not on the other 3 books.
Just like
I thought he did, but we don't have it.
I think he didn't. Okay, I think that's what the thesis is.
by Maimonides and then only writing on 2 books.
What are the Maimonides only wrote?
Everyone.
Oh, that Maimonides. I think like people from literally from the Maimonides family. Razak only wrote on 1 book. On 1 book of Chumash, yeah, only on Beraishis. No, if you find it, let me know. But no, it doesn't exist. Yeah. Anyway, so this Moshe Maimon said that he's been learning Avraham ben Rambam since he was a teenager, and he wanted to just make a new edition, and then he started writing it and then doing footnotes. And essentially what he ended up doing is producing this edition where not only is it a critical edition where like, it's good translations and good manuscripts and everything. I think there's only 1 manuscript, but it's good translations from the Arabic. But every footnote is just explaining like everything that Avraham ben Rambam says and then quoting from Rishonim and Gaonim whose works we don't have access to, like that average human beings don't have access to, just like the digitizers do, and so it's just this amazing Avraham ben Rambam. And then at the back of the Avraham ben Rambam, It has key Abraham ben Ramam in every parsha that you should look at if you want to like look at like the highlights. And I think it's sold out of Brooklyn because the only place I've seen it sold is on eBay. And like whenever I've ordered it, I've ordered a couple copies. I just like get it a couple days later, like all like hand wrapped, you know. So I recommend if you're into Abraham ben Ramam, then buy this. I bought. I bought. He also published Abraham ben Ramam's essay on Agadata on Midrashim, and that is a critical edition that has stuff that no one else has seen, like other manuscripts, you know. And it's also very good. And I bought them as Hanukkah gifts last year for the guys in that shiur. So that's why I bought multiple copies. Okay, so here he has a footnote, and his footnotes are all good. I don't always buy everything he says. Okay, but he has a footnote on the line. Yeah.
What language did Abraham?
He wrote it in Judeo-Arabic.
Got it.
Yeah. Okay. So on this line, the Efshar Shahayu Mavakrim es Kivra umispalim sham. It's possible that they visited her grave and davened there. So here's what he says. So he's going to engage in what we call a little Maimonidean forensics or detective work. Okay. So he says like this. Oh, so first he explains what I explained. I think I probably got it from him. It seems like the Abraham ben Ramam's intent is to show us the reason why the Torah mentioned the place of her burial in Torah. Okay, because it could have just said she died and they mourned her. It didn't have to say, and he named the place and this is where it is. This is like the Rashbam explains later on. So Rashbam on the pasuk about the place of the burial of Rachel says similarly, see what I wrote earlier, lirbiנו, that according to the Abraham ben Ramam, kisva devareha haTorah kisva devareha lefi das mikableha bisman matan Torah. So this is a big question, I think, especially in academia now. Who is the Torah writing to? Okay, so Abraham ben Ramam, according to Moshe Maimon, holds that the Torah was writing. I know it's confusing, right? That the Torah was writing to the people at the time of Matan Torah, so telling them, "Hey guys, like this is where." Yeah, Ad Hayom Hazeh, meaning it doesn't mean like prophetically Ad Hayom Hazeh like today. It means until the time of the contemporaneous to the time of Matan Torah. Okay, so now he says like this. According to our approach, Lamanu Hashkafas Rabbeinu al Hamakomos Hakadoshim, we learn the outlook of Abraham ben Ramam about holy places. That according to Abraham ben Ramam, there are places that are more fit for hashra'a, meaning for God's hashgacha, and for tefillah. Now, Rav Pesach mentioned this in his Sunday shiur this Sunday. He said that Abraham ben Ramam on the ladder dream says there's a sod, there's a secret, that there are certain places that are more proper for tefillah and shechina, which to me does not sound like a Maimonidean idea. It sounds more like a Nachmanidean idea.
I mean, don't we say though that like keep basically tefillah?
Right, but according to my understanding of the Rambam, that's because of how we treat it, not because of intrinsic properties. Here, I don't know. He's not taking a stance on that. He's not taking a stance, but there though, by the sod, by the place where Yaakov named Beis El, Abraham ben Ramam seemed to indicate that the place itself was significant. Yeah.
I mean, psychologically, or does it mean like metaphysically?
Something metaphysically, yeah. The mashal that is used by Menachem Kellner. So there's this great book called Maimonides' Confrontation with Mysticism by Menachem Kellner, who's a frum academic who writes really good stuff. So the book is about basically how the Rambam saw what Kellner calls the proto-Kabbalists, like people who the Kabbalists that were like developing prior to the time of the Rambam, and the Rambam wanted to basically like set the record straight and state what Judaism really is. And what the effect that has is it galvanized all of the proto-Kabbalists and like led to like a resurgence in Kabbalah. Anyway, in the book, he explains the difference between the Rambam's view of Kedusha and the Ramban and the Kuzari's view of Kedusha. And he gives this great mashal. He says, well, first of all, he says, according to the Ramban and the Kuzari, Kedusha is a property that inheres in places, things, and objects and people.
If you took it to an extreme, if you took dirt from like our body,
exactly,
else, like that,
right, correct, yeah. Whereas according to the Rambam, Kedusha is a function of we create kedusha by how we relate to the thing, and the Torah is legislating that, you know. Okay, so the mashal he gives is a great one. He says you can use the mashal of a kedusha Geiger counter, okay, that detects radiation, right? So it's like if you had a Geiger counter that detected the kedusha and you moved it over to harabais, it would start clicking rapidly, and if you moved it away, it would not, you know. So like that's what I meant when I said it sounds like more like a Nachmanidean idea. Okay, but anyway, he's not taking a stance right here. He says, "V'hishve mashkas Rabbeinu le'el parshas Chayesara urei mashkasavti sham." Okay, I looked there, not really relevant to this purpose. Okay, V'chumochin nimtzinu l'medim sheladas Rabbeinu gam kvuras hatzadikim nechshavim bichlal hamakomos haruuyim yoser l'tfila. So he says, and again, the whole reason we're doing this is to analyze whether we agree with him or not. Okay, that you see from the Avraham ben Rambam that the graves of tzaddikim are counted as these places that are proper for tefillah. Okay. Now you asked the question: is Avraham ben Rambam just describing what people did, or is he advocating it? I would argue that if he were against it, he would condemn it, because that's the derech of Avraham ben Rambam and his father, to condemn things that are associated with avodah zarah, you know, that they disapprove of. So the fact that he's mentioning it, I think, is an endorsement. Okay.
Well, could be indifferent, no?
Could be indifferent, but he's
to like the minhag that the Rambam brings down, I think Hanukkah, where there's like some sort of minhag. I don't remember exactly what it was.
Yeah.
But there's something with, I think, the way of lighting the candles. It was where they lit them. And he brings it down. And I think he's seems neutral, but I think we said he's condemning it there. I'm not sure.
Could be, but that is in halakhic areas. I'm saying that if there were areas that involved like inappropriate prayer or avoda to God, you know, then like you know, I feel like they'd say something. Okay, so then he bracketed, says ukumoshin nir min divrehim zal basota lamadal beis, like we find in Sota, Gabi, yeah, Kalev, yeah, shenishtateach al kivrei avos. The Kalev prostrated himself on the graves of the avos.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, umimakomos nosapos b'divrei Chazal, and we find Chazal say this elsewhere. I didn't actually look at these other sources. Hamorim al hanohig haklali lihispal etel kvarim kasher hedir hamadir. Here madir. That's what we're going to read now. Okay, yeah, good. Okay, so he is acknowledging it definitely is a thing in Chazal, praying at graves of tzaddikim. Okay, but now he's going to go to the Rambam. Kechol hanira gam das Rambam sheish to'elis b'tefila al kavaros. Says it seems that according to the Rambam, there also is a benefit in tefillah at graves. Okay, how so? Kamoshin nitan lihivakeach milashon Rambenu kan, as you can infer from the Avraham ben Rambam's language here. Shemin hastam kivil me avi hashkafazo. We can generally assume that he got this view from his father. Now, here's the thing: he often quotes his father in his commentary, but he quotes him when he hears a specific פירוש from his father. But it is reasonable to assume that Avraham ben Rambam, you know, learned or agreed with his father in these things. Not in all areas, but it's as a default assumption.
Haven't we learned that the Rambam has later changed his mind or something from Rambam ben Rambam also?
That does sound familiar.
We have like I don't remember what exactly it is, but I think we have like him quoting his father, and it's like contrary to like something that his father wrote.
Oh yeah, interesting. Yeah, I don't know. The other weird thing also, by the way, is Avraham ben Rambam was very young when the Rambam died. He was like 18 or 20 or something like that. Yeah. Yeah, they did learn together. And there's so I saw this adorable thing, this adorable letter about the Rambam from this other guy who like went to go visit the Rambam, and Avraham ben Rambam like hung out with the guy's son, and like the Rambam like fed the kid like lemon cake or something like that, and it was like playing with the kid. I gotta find it. I meant to bring it up in Rambam Vakius, but yeah, exactly. We love that. Okay. Anyway, the kasher ola gam hagas Rambam pratis kafi edusu mismach hamsuted al yedei bal sefer hacharedim. Now this I think is a little sketchy. Okay. So the Sefer HaCharedim was, we all know who that is. I say as I look up the Sefer HaCharedim. Oh, sorry, this is so funny, by the way. I used to have the autocorrect would go to Wikipedia, but I've gone to Marcus Aurelius so much that it changed to Marcus Aurelius when I type in the thing. Yeah, anyway, so Wikipedia, Sefer HaCharedim. I don't know how they spell Charedim, probably with an H, not a CH. Sefer HaCharedim was, I just forgot when he was, if he was a early Acharon or a late Rishon. Sefer HaCharedim. I don't know. Oh, Sefer HaCharedim by Rabbi Eliezer Azkari. Is that the one? I don't know. All right, fine. Who are the Sefer HaCharedim is? So he quotes what he says is a letter from the Rambam. Okay, now Rav Shelat in the Igros Rambam has real letters, questionable letters, and fake letters. Okay, and I didn't have time to look and see if this is in the fake letters. I assume this is not even mentioned anywhere because then he would say, so this is apparently what the Rambam said in this letter. U'be'echad b'Shabbos on Sunday, tes b'chodesh. This is part of a large narrative about the Rambam visiting places. Yeah, you found it?
It's by Rabbi Elazar ben Moshe Azikri, a Jewish Kabbalist, poet, writer.
In Sfas 1500s?
1533 to 1600.
Yeah, I did look it up earlier. Yeah, fine. So this is not like a Rambam contemporary or anything. Okay, this was a couple hundred years later. Anyway, so according to him, the Rambam says on Sunday, on the 9th of the month, Yatzasim Yerushalayim l'Chevron. I went from Yerushalayim to Hebron, l'nashik kivrei avosai b'ma'ara, to kiss the graves of my fathers at the cave. Okay. V'oso yom amarti b'ma'ara v'his palati. And that day I stood at the cave and I davened. So he's saying that's what the Rambam did. Okay. That's to me questionable. Okay. But just because we don't just accept anything that is the claim of to come from a letter of the Rambam. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
I know that we use that word for tefillah, but doesn't it have kind of other meanings also?
It's only used for tefillah, but the origin of it is pilah means to judge. But hit palati in the reflexive means to pray, or what we say to pray. Well, it is reflexive, but
like meditation.
Well, that's not what it is. We did what it is last night.
Okay.
Shavu Kashan Hada, yeah. Of Af Shekasov Rambam Hilchos Avel, even though the Rambam writes in Hilchos Avel. Okay, now let's look this up in context. Okay, so in the laws of mourning, okay, the Rambam says umitzainin as hakavaros. We decorate the graves. Okay, we make them look nice. Umitzainin literally means masamnim besid. We make them with marble. Okay. Uboni nefesh al kever. Now nefesh here is, I don't know why they call it nefesh. Nefesh is a tombstone. Okay, in this context, usually nefesh means soul. We build a tombstone on the grave. Okay, now this is a great line to remember. V'hat tzadikim, okay, the righteous, ein bonim lahem nefesh al kivroseim. We do not build a tombstone on the grave. Why? Divreihem heim zichronam, because their words are their memorials. Okay, so obviously this is not followed nowadays. People do build tombstones on the graves of tzaddikim. I forgot why. I think maybe it's a thing of like people don't want to say that they're a tzaddik, like so they're humbled by like having a grave built, and in other words, like if you command people don't build a tombstone on my grave, I'm a tzaddik, like that's like a arrogant thing. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The only thing you missed is the Rambam in Hilchos Avel says we decorate the graves and we build a tombstone on the grave, but tzaddikim, we don't build a tombstone on their grave because their words are their memorial.
That's only if you bury them.
Yeah, it's a cool halakha.
Does Moed Khan say that you go back 30 years later and demarcate the grave?
For tzaddikim or for?
I think it just said it. I don't know.
So demarcating is different from building a tombstone. Building a tombstone is like a whole, like what we call a matzeva. Yeah, right. Yeah, what do you say?
It's only if you bury them in a cemetery. You bury them in the middle of nowhere, wherever you live.
No, it's exactly the opposite. That's why Moed Khan says that you put something there so you don't turn it into like a farm.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you mark the graves. You just don't build a tombstone, right? Like, yeah, when I say tombstone, I mean a mitzvah, like a fancy tombstone. Yeah. Okay. Then he says v'lo yifne adam levakar hakvaros, which literally means the person should not turn aside to visit the graves. Okay. Now there's a huge. So that's the question. The question is, what does the Rambam mean? So one question is, does he mean never or like as a practice? Okay. And then the other question is, and this is a problem even in manuscripts, because there was no such thing as punctuation back then, right? So the question is this a continuation of the previous statement? So does he mean don't build graves for tzaddikim because their words are their graves and a person shouldn't go and visit the graves of tzaddikim? Or does he mean graves in general? Okay, so let's just look at our friend Rav Makbili on the side, because he says, "V'lo yifnei adam levakar hakvaros lefi hapisuk hanochachi." According to the present division, mishpat zeh omen b'fnei atmo. This sentence stands on its own. Sheb'ofen klali ein levakar hakvaros, meaning in general, don't visit graves. But it's possible you should make a break before it. According to that implication, you shouldn't go visit the graves of the tzaddikim. Because really you should turn to their words, not their graves. In other words, if we discourage people from going to their graves, that's like an incentive to like look at their words, because that's their real memorial. So even either way, the implication is that you shouldn't focus on the physical remnants of a human being, but on their actions and their metaphysical effect. It seems though that there's no prohibition in the matter. Rambam doesn't say usher to visit the graves of the tzaddikim. Kever. I don't know what that means. And he quotes a letter of the Rambam, which I tried to look up and I couldn't find. Okay, so with that in mind, let's read what what Moshe Maimon says. He says, so even though, so he just got through saying that the Rambam would seem to indicate that it is okay to daven at the graves of tzaddikim, and even though he said in Hilchos Eivel a person shouldn't go and visit the graves, kvar pirshu haradvaz hakesef mishnah k'inyan prati v'lo haga klalis. So he's saying that the Radvaz and the Kesef Mishnah take that reading that it means don't go and, is that what it means? What does it mean, Inyan Prati, as a particular idea and not as a general practice?
Maybe particular meaning,
like the opposite of what we were saying before, that you shouldn't go to stuff you can do.
See, but he's trying to argue that the Rambam is saying that it's okay to daven at tzaddikim's graves.
Which, as a side, by the way,
yeah.
I think that the Chazal that talked about Kohen,
Mm-hmm.
I think it says that he went there because it was on the way.
Oh, okay.
Which is interesting because the Rambam says
you turn aside, yeah.
And you shouldn't go out of your way to do it. And
yeah.
It's just kind of like a thing.
Yeah, it's funny. You do make a good point that he says you shouldn't turn to go there. I used to have a theory, which I no longer hold by, but I still think it's a cool theory, that the Rambam is alluding to avodah zarah, because what's the prohibition of being involved, giving into avodah zarah phenomena? Al tifnu el ha'elilim, don't turn aside to the to other gods, But I abandoned that because I don't think that's pshat in the Rambam. I think it sounds cool though. Okay, but then he says like this. Even if you accept the Rambam's words at their face value, that he means you shouldn't go to graves. So let's go to Hilchos Tainos. So this is a cool thing. So the Rambam does have an idea of visiting graves on a fast day. Okay, and now this is not a fast day. He's talking about not the national fast days that we observe on the calendar. He's saying like fast days that they decree for like droughts and famines. So he says, he does say for personal ones. Oh yeah. So I don't know what the Rambam would hold about personal ones or about national fast days, but he is talking here specifically about like communal fast days for tragedies. So this is a cool idea. After the community davens on these fast days, all the people go out to the graveyard. So it's interesting. They cry and they supplicate there. So he does say supplicate. He doesn't say mispalim, but because they already daven, but implies that there are supplications going on there. Kolomar, as if to say, Hare atem mesim, you guys are dead. Not you guys in the graves. You people, meaning they say to each other, you people who are doing tshuva and fasting are dead, ka'elu, like these guys, im lo tashuvu midarchechem, if you don't do tshuva from your ways. This is like a scared straight program in the prisons.
He's saying that you only, or not only, but that the idea of visiting a grave for tequila is not for the sake of the place or because of
right.
It's almost like a negative.
Yeah.
Negative. What's the word? Like negative encouragement.
Negative reinforcement.
Yes.
Yeah. Right. It's like it's using the day of death as a vehicle for tshuva, right? And it is interesting. Maybe he's inferring from here. I mean, you could argue from there that if the Rambam really held that davening at graves was such a good thing, then he would say you go to the grave to daven. But you could also argue, no, of course they're not going to daven outside of a shul, right?
You could say, isn't there but isn't there like I guess this is one of the biggest questions on, I guess, davening like Kever in general, is that like, it's very forward from, I think, the Gemara, you have to like do things that you know, you kind of cover a mace or whatever you want to call it, but like not putting your shit.
Right. So you shouldn't do mitzvos, or you shouldn't have mitzvos out. That's also true. Right. So that's a good question. Right. That's a good question. Right. So I know you can't display like mitzvah objects, you know, like tzitzis is the big example.
Do like I guess.
Like, I've never heard anyone say, and I'm not saying this authoritatively, but like you can't do mitzvos in a graveyard. Like, so then as soon as you're carrying a coffin to the grave, you gotta like drop it and run, like, you know, yeah, you know, yeah. Right, yeah. Or
That's only when you're burying or like attending a funeral, not if you're just in a cemetery in general.
I think the implication is just at a cemetery in general, but I haven't looked at it in a while.
Why are you in a cemetery other than doing something like that? It's not supposed to become time-based.
We were doing
You could become, if you're Kohen, you can't, but yeah. There's nothing wrong with becoming Tameh for a regular person.
We were doing that with
Yeah.
Rabbi Feder and his Gemara
Oh, yeah.
like a couple weeks back, but we didn't really go so deep into like the practice.
Mhm.
So,
Okay, so even though the Rambam the Rambam implies from what we just read that the benefit in going to graves is to remember the day of death. I mean, not that the dead pray for you. Okay, right? I mean, that's why some people go to the graves, you know. B'chol and Rambam would definitely say that that's bad because you can't use intermediary in tefillah. B'chol zos, this only means in general. But certainly Rambam saw a benefit in davening in these places, as we have proven. I don't think he's proven it unless he's really relying on that letter. You know, there's no proof. I don't see any proof that the Rambam that he's brought from the Rambam here. Just that the Rambam is okay with it, and maybe not even okay with it, because he does say don't go to the graveyards. You know, so like I don't think it's a strong argument.
But the Rambam said that you could go there, but that you should daven like from yourself to God, and like.
Where's the Rambam say that?
I don't know where he said that.
Oh yeah.
I remember hearing it.
I mean, that's definitely, if the Rambam held that davening at graves was the thing, then it's definitely what he would say, but I don't know where he says it.
Yeah.
And he definitely doesn't bring it out. Now, this last...
Like just using the person who's buried there, like it's good to help.
Right. So that's my understanding, which is basically that, like, when you go there, you're first of all reminding yourself that this was a real person who lived like this life. And you're basically, with the Yom Hamis idea, you're saying like, what am I doing with my life? You know, and like that inspires you to daven more. Okay.
Less of a fantastical.
Yeah, right. It's not like a, you know, transfer me some points, you know. Yeah. Uvehekshir ze roy latain lashono shel Rav David Rebbe Yoshua. So for this, Nagid ha'akaron. So do you know about the Nagid? So Abraham was like a communal leader, right? Sorry, Rambam was a communal leader. Avraham was appointed a Nagid, which is like the leader of the Jews. Okay, and there was a succession. I had to look this up on Maimonides family tree. So here you have Maimun and his son Moses. And there's David, right, who died, who we talked about. Yeah. Moshe's son Abraham. He only had one son. Abraham's son David and Obadiah. David's son Solomon. And Abraham. Abraham's son, oh, sorry, this is not the right line. Oh, yeah, this is it. Yeah. Abraham and Abraham's son Joshua and Joshua's son David. So that was the last of, and all of these, I think, were leaders in the community. Okay. So, well, that's a very Sephardic thing, right? Is like I don't know when it started. I mean, there was no other Maimon, right? So then what happened? So he quotes from this letter, okay? No, I doubt it. Yeah, I assume so. So this is all in Egypt. So this is when the last Nagid of the Maimon family, the last scion of Maimon, was leaving Egypt, and he wrote in a letter, Shekazav ben Hashar, he wrote, Velugam tishkachunu atem, even if we forget you, anachnu lo nishkachim mihispalel, we will not forget to daven and to ask from Hashem in the holy places and the places of visiting that are revered. I forgot what Nerati means. On the success of your affairs and the lives of your children. Okay, so he uses this phrase, we won't forget to play at these holy places. V'chein benosin inyan letzayin divrei Rabbeinu b'sefer HaMaspik. And then in the Avraham ben Rambam's book, HaMaspik L'Ovdei Hashem, which is his big work on ethics and perfection, he says, HaKavarim HaNichbadim, the distinguished graves, Kivros HaNavim, v'Kivros Chachmei Yisrael, Shenitan Lir'osam Ad Hayom Be'eretz Yisrael. He says the distinguished graves are the graves of the prophets and the graves of the Chachmei Yisrael that you can see when you go to Israel today. So he's trying to pull a move here that Avraham ben Rambam uses the phrase HaKavarim HaNichbadim, implying that seeing them is a good thing, and saying that his great-great-great-grandson says that we will pray for you at these good graves.
Well, he kind of doesn't say the word grave.
He doesn't say grave, sorry. We will pray for you at these revered places, yeah.
Like he's disproving himself there. Because
Right, because he should have said graves.
Right.
But there are other...
Every other word starting with grave.
No, but that just could be a more inclusive thing. Like you should pray at the harabais, you should pray at the graves, you should pray at the, at whatever, at any of these places. So what was it? Yeah. So what do you think? I'm not seeing a compelling argument that the Rambam positively advocated davening at graves. If anything, I would say he says, don't go visit graves, and if you do visit graves, it's to remind you of the day of death, and would he allow it? Yeah, I think he would allow it as long as you're not praying to the dead, but I don't see any, except for that letter, which is a little sketchy, I don't see any positive things saying that he advocates for it. That's in Hilchos Avel by morning. And again, and you could say that specifically means graves of tzaddikim, but that gets you more in trouble with the Devorah thing, So it sounds like this thing that Avraham ben Rambam is saying, that he, people did it, people davened there, and it doesn't sound like he's opposing it. Avraham ben Rambam, it doesn't sound like he's opposing it, but yeah. So that was just that side issue that I saw from this footnote. I don't have any conclusive.
The only thing I want to add is again
yeah.
I don't know if that's important or not.
I also don't know,
I'm
and
not sure.
yeah, and what I would want to look at is if that's the lashon from the Gemara, which he often just uses the lashon of Chazal if that's what they used. But if it is his lashon, then the question would be what is he adding, and then I'd be more inclined to read into it. Yeah. Okay, so that was an adventure in Devorah and praying at Devorah's grave. Yeah, and we got to find out if there is if they know where that is, so that we can not pray there.
Every single oak tree.
Yeah. What was it?
Or two
pray there. Yeah. Well, at least see. Here's the thing, though. Going there, I think it was definitely a good thing, right? Sorry, not according to the Rambam, because he says you shouldn't go to the base, the Kever, the tzaddikim. But according to the Avraham ben Rambam, though, sounds like a good thing. Yeah.
I just wanted to another point that I guess kind of pushes the idea of not praying my graves.
Yeah.
The Torah makes it very clear. I'm sure this is a large portion of where the idea stems from. It makes it very clear that we don't know where Moshe's grave is.
Right.
And I think there's a lot on that. And,
Yeah.
it talks about how specifically because we don't want people to pray to Moshe.
Right.
We don't want him to become some sort of deity.
Right.
So
yeah, but that's specific to Moshe, right? The Avos have the Maras HaMachpelah and Kever Rachel and all that other stuff. Yeah, that is specific to Moshe. But it's a good question why we don't worry about that for other people.
Right.
But yeah.
I mean,
we should worry now, but I'm saying why Chazal weren't worried, Yeah, right. But we see what people do with certain other graves where they write letters to the inhabitants, Yeah. Alrighty.
There are some people who say that's okay. There's some non.
Yeah.
Who say that's okay.
Yeah.
people do it in the Kota also.
Yeah.
That's different.
Yeah, that is different. Yeah,
I wonder which one's worse.
I mean, I definitely think that, again, it's not pshat. I definitely think that the grave thing is worse because especially if you're asking, well, this could be worse in two ways. One is if you're asking that person to intercede on your behalf, and then that's machlokas rishonim, right? Whether you're allowed to daven to angels, right? Obviously Rambam holds that.
Yeah, he kind of spells the entire thing out.
Right, but it is machlokas rishonim. That's how there are these piyutim that have that, And then, but the other problem, and I don't think this is a halachic problem, but there is a losa semi d'oraisa of dorish el hamesim, of inquiring of the dead. Now, that has a specific form where you like fast and you sleep in the graveyard and all the other stuff. Well, that's the Ovenidoni. That's also in the graveyard, right? And the dead comes to you in a dream, but it partakes, if you're asking the dead questions, then certainly philosophically it partakes of like trying to communicate with the dead. You know, it's not, I don't think halakhically it is, but yeah. All right, let's stop here for today. All right, see ya.
Thank you. Have a good night.